So I wanted to take a quick moment to address this comment. It was left on a video that I had done yesterday about Gypsy Rose Blanchard. As you can see, the comment said, people should just leave her alone. She was by her mom her whole life. Now people who have no lives bullying her. Well, this commenter did get one thing right. I don't have a life. A 48-year-old, hormonal, petty bitch. And I own it. And I like to talk about these people. So you did get that part right. But now I don't blame anyone that doesn't have the facts. Because when Gypsy Rose was released from prison, I too bought the story. I thought, oh my God, she had this horrible childhood, and and I could almost see why she had done what she did. Then you get to look into the facts. We had all these FOIAs, all of her medical records just about are available to look at. One place, if anybody's interested in looking into this, if you go over onto the YT, you can go to the Into the Weeds podcast. You hit the description, and they will have a list. You can go to their drive, and it will show you everything. It has the videos, the FB messages, the medical records. It has everything you need to know to learn what truly happened here. Now, Gypsy has a chromosome deletion. 1, 2, Q1.1, something, I may have those letters wrong, but she has a chromosome deletion. They did not know this because this deletion was not discovered until 2008. So Gypsy was not even diagnosed with this chromosome deletion. Her nor Dee Dee knew what was causing any of her illnesses until, I believe, 2014 is when Gypsy finally, they found this deletion, okay? Now, Gypsy was born with problems, microcephaly, which was the small head. She had strabismus. You could look at the pictures. She had an eye. She would have probably went blind had this eye not been addressed. It was completely turned in or out. It was bad. She was born with a high palate. So, people say she had all these unnecessary surgeries. What surgeries? Gypsy had tubes in her ears. She got a lot of ear infections, as do a lot of children. Dee Dee wasn't giving her ear infections. She had issues with her digestion, which is also a side effect to this chromosome deletion. She had failure to thrive. At the age of 8, I believe she was less than 40 pounds. She spent about 6 months in a feeding hospital, and she was not gaining any weight. And they did swallow tests and everything. To this day, you can see Gypsy has a very hard time swallowing food, which is why she does the tongue thrust constantly, because it's hard for her to swallow. So when she's thrusting her tongue, she's like trying to swallow saliva or anything. You can watch her, the dainty bites, the little sips, because it's hard for her to swallow because of her high palate. Now, in this feeding hospital, she was unable to even gain any weight. The feeding tube was a necessity. Because, like I said, at 8 years old, she was less than 40 pounds. So the feeding tube was a necessity, minor surgery. She had a muscle biopsy because she was in this wheelchair because she refused to get out of the wheelchair. She knew she could walk at the age of 6. She said this herself in a video to Nicholas Godejohn. She knew she could walk, but she did not want to tell her mother because she was afraid of losing love from her mother. I don't think that's the reason she didn't say. I think she liked the attention she got from being in the wheelchair. But either way, Dee Dee was not forcing her to stay in this wheelchair. Gypsy forced herself to stay in this wheelchair. Gypsy had the eye surgeries, as I mentioned. Necessity. Her teeth. Gypsy was sucking on a bottle until the day she went to prison. Till the day she got arrested. Let me clarify. And it's noted in her record she had poor oral hygiene. That's what contributed to her rotting teeth. And she, much like myself, you could see the cases of Pepsi throughout the house. She liked her soda, much like I live off soda. That all contributed to her rotting teeth. You cannot, especially with Medicaid, walk in somewhere and say, I want her teeth pulled. Because with Medicaid, you have to fight to get anything done. Which is, I'm going through a lot of this now with health issues I have. I'm having to fight for procedures that I need done. But you know, you have to have so many opinions from these different doctors to get these all of this approved when you have Medicaid. So Dee Dee could not, there's no way she was convincing these doctors to do these things. The salivary glands. During even sleep studies, it was documented. Dee Dee wasn't there even during the sleep studies. They even documented during the sleep studies that Gypsy was choking on saliva because extra saliva was pooling in her throat. So Dee Dee was not there rubbing Orajel on her gums or any of that nonsense. This was noted. They were giving her Botox injections, which was controlling it. Then in the records, it says patient stated, not mother, patient stated the Botox injections were no longer working. Therefore, they did the surgery and removed 2 salivary glands. You have hundreds of salivary glands. They took out 2. Okay, so that clears up all this, you know, all these surgeries she supposedly had. That's it. Like I said, she had acid reflux, she had asthma, so she had inhalers. She had antacids, things for digestion. She had a seizure disorder. Noted. Doctors even observed the seizure that she had during surgery, which was what gave her the temporary paralysis. And she always had a low muscle tone, which is the side effect of the microdeletion. Okay? She is noted that she did receive chemotherapy. I need to dig into that further, because it may have been for like this kind of an anemic condition, but either way she had a chemotherapy. That is noted. So Dee Dee was not forcing any or harming Gypsy in any way. Was Dee Dee a saint? No. Dee Dee was very overprotective of her daughter because she thought her daughter was not going to live a long life. She was scared. She didn't know what was wrong with her daughter. And yes, Dee Dee was running cons, scams. She was. But she was doing what she had to do to provide for her daughter, because Rod Blanchard was not in the picture. He would have not even been in the picture today had Dee Dee not continued to try to facilitate this relationship between Gypsy and her father. So, no. And this whole Munchausen syndrome by proxy is a defense that was cooked up by Michael Stanfield, Gypsy's defense attorney. Gypsy was going to face the death penalty or life in prison. She had no defense. Now, if these horrible things were happening to you, and this detective comes in the room and says, we're charging you with first-degree murder, what are you going to say if you were really harmed? Myself? I'm going to break down and be like, oh my God, I didn't know what to do. This is what was happening to me my whole life. But Gypsy never spoke a word. So if she was really being harmed, why did she never speak on it? Until Michael Stanfield put this bug in her ear. After his paralegal was in these groups on the FB and whatnot, testing out different theories to see what they could throw at the wall, what would stick. At first, they wanted to use something similar to a battered spouse defense. When they figured that wouldn't stick, that's when this whole Munchausen thing came into effect. So, I urge you, Callie, to go and look into all these things for yourself. Because like you, I also believed it. But the evidence clearly states that Gypsy was not harmed by her mother. If anything, Gypsy was the one doing the harming. And she had been in contact, she had internet, she had a phone. Why did she not get any help? It just doesn't add up. All the evidence shows us that this was all just a cooked up defense by Michael Stanfield. So yeah, I just wanted to take the moment. That was too much to type out, and I just wanted to educate you. And like I said, this is all available online. You can look up all of this. But thanks for taking the time to watch my video and leave a comment. I do appreciate that. And I hope you all have a wonderful day.